gosh, I need to... Dinosaur magic.
Twitter says dinosaur magic.
That's amazing.
Oh, the internet. Filled with people with magical powers. The internet is magical. I always think so.
It is. They do amazing things.
You basically write a spell into Google, and then you click return, and it finds whatever it is. It's like you dream things up. Like one time, I thought it would be funny for a presentation if I put a picture of a tiger hugging a man. So I just typed in tiger hugging man. Click. And there's like 35 photographs of a tiger hugging a man.
Yeah.
That's magic, folks. That's magic.
It's not dinosaur magic, but it's damn close.
Some space age crap, that's for sure.
I should have left the show notes open.
Yes, you should have. I'm in the middle of closing down what I can as well, just to try to help. It's been a while since I've rebooted. And it's time for me to actually go through here and do a system refresh. It's been a while.
I'm gonna probably do that when Windows 7000 comes out or whatever it is. Whatever we're up to, sort of up to, that's when I'm gonna do it.
Okay. I'm still going kind of slow. Oh well.
Yeah, let's freak everybody out, Mick. Whoa, I'm in a slow motion time loop, everybody.
Okay, let's start the show.
I'm going to read the Heroes of the Pants Slack notes while you guys are.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Gorath was posting a bunch of stuff in there.
I was ready to start, but if you want to do that instead, that's fine.
No, man, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Have you guys played any matches yet, Mick?
We talked about that on the show, but not yet.
Okay, all right.
I know you guys jumped in there.
I'm excited. I wanna watch. I need to scout.
Save it for the show.
We'll save it for the show.
All right. Mick, whenever you're ready, start us off.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. Where's my line? Is it above the picture of Grandpa without his pants on?
Who put in the picture of Grandpa without his pants on?
I may or may not have done this. Here we go. This is Mick Montgomery from the Starting Zone and Stormcast Podcast, and you're listening to Azeroth Roundtable.
It's always so nice.
I know. Mick's great. I love the way he starts everything.
He's pretty
I was going to
awesome.
say our show, but he starts his show the same way, and it's just it's explosion. Just an explosion of flavor that just comes out. It's amazing.
Full of energy. He's like the gusher of show intros.
That's what I was trying to remember. What was the gum that squirted sugar stuff into your mouth when you chewed on it?
That was squirt gum.
Oh, God, it was awful. It was an awful thing.
Yeah. And I don't know who's sitting out there and, like, every time they have to come up with an idea for gum or candy, they're like, now, what if on the outside you've got a regular chewable thing, but as soon as you bite into it, some sort of viscous fluid is going to shoot into the back of your throat.
Yeah.
That's a lot like those Captain Crunch Delights. I had some of those. They were good.
Yeah,
they're really good.
They're surprisingly good.
Is this another like really truly awful product produced by Charles Jr. /
No. This was Taco Bell.
This one's by Taco Bell.
Yeah, talked about it last week,
and that makes it just as bad.
Oh, it's good.
This is a company that said to itself, you know what? The taco shell as we know it
is flawed.
It's no longer cutting the mustard. So we got to innovate, guys. We got to innovate on taco shell. Bob, do you have any ideas over there? Bob, yes, you're raising your hand. Oh yeah, I got an idea for taco shell innovation. What if we made a more vegetarian, like a kale shell? Wouldn't that be good? It'd be healthier for everyone. Bob, this is your last day. Go ahead and pack up your stuff, and security will beat you and then walk you out the door. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah, I got an idea.
Yes, Philip, what's your idea?
I like Doritos.
Oh, Philip. Philip, who doesn't like Doritos?
That guy.
All right, guys around the table? Yeah, Cheryl, you like Doritos, right? Yes,
I love Doritos.
She does. There she goes. Okay, Phil, expand on that. Doritos. How does Doritos fit in with a taco made by Taco Bell?
Well, when I'm at home, I take Doritos and I glue them together and put taco crap inside and then eat it.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that back to you, Philip, just so I make sure I heard that correctly. So when you're at home, you take Doritos chips.
Yeah.
And you glue them together.
Uh-huh.
And then you put taco, did you say just taco stuff inside?
Yeah, like meat and cheese and lettuce and stuff.
What about tomatoes and sour cream? Do you make a supreme version of this?
Oh, that's a good idea. That's innovative right there.
Okay. I like where this is going. I like this. We've got glue, we've got Doritos chips, and particles of taco ingredients. Now, how do we wrap this up in a lovely little bow? Yeah, George, what's your idea?
Well, I was just thinking that people sometimes when they're eating tacos, it crumbles all over in your hands, and you're just like, well, I was here for a taco, not for potato chips. So I was just thinking, like, what if we took like a soft taco and we wrapped it around the taco? We put like cheese in the middle as like a glue for the taco.
Okay. So what I'm saying to you is there's a problem that our customer base has, that taco shell crumbles apart, and we have to find a way to contain the taco shell.
Yeah, I hate when I get crumbs all over everything I do.
Okay, George, I love the free thinking idea, and I think that's great, but I want to circle this back. How do we incorporate Doritos and glue into that idea? How do we do that?
What if the taco was a Dorito?
That's too small.
No, wait, hang on.
That's why I glue them.
Hang on. I just want to go back to that. Hang on. We'll get back to the glue in a second. So you're saying the taco shell would be a Dorito?
Yeah, like if you had a really big Dorito and it was in the shape of a taco.
That'd work.
Okay. I think we've all got something here. I think we need to take a big deep breath together. Let it out. That's great. One of you has pneumonia, and you really should have looked at. Okay, so what I hear here is that the idea is we take a taco shell and we basically carve it out of a large Dorito chip into a taco form. Is there still glue involved? I'm a little sketchy on that factor. Are we still using glue in this?
Well, I think what they're saying is that we can branch out into many different products. You know, you've got your basic Dorito taco, you've got your taco, your Dorito taco supreme. That'd have your sour cream on there. Gotcha. But then what if we also surrounded the Dorito taco with cheese and put a soft taco around that? That's 3 different products.
Oh, you're right. That's 3 different products. And if we change the meat part of the taco to feature chicken, or perhaps another idea, we could then reiterate on those 3 products. We'd have 6 products then.
How about
it's a number I can't even count to, man.
Steak?
Steak, yes, steak. Very good. Very good. Steak.
What if
chicken?
we had chicken and shredded chicken?
That's dangerous.
What's the difference between the chicken and the shredded chicken?
Well, the shredded chicken is shredded.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wait. Let me expand on that. Okay.
Okay. Expand on expand on shredded chicken, because I feel like I do need an expansion of that.
What if we take a chicken, like a whole chicken, stuff it with shredded chicken, then cover it in cheese, lettuce, and sour cream, and wrap it in a Doritos soft tortilla?
Okay. There's a lot of that I like, but I'm looking over at Carl from Legal, and he's giving me that eye, and I know what Carl's thinking. He's thinking, remember that one time with the bones, and there was a whole thing, and that's why we don't have, bones in any of the products. Well, yeah. We have bone dust, of course, that's ground up in the meat, but that's not considered a bone legally. So, okay, I want you to keep that one in your back pocket, though, because I'm not going to say no to it, but I'm also not going to say yes. Okay. So, I'm kind of want to wrap this up because I do want to get this over to marketing so they could start, sketching up some test photos for the next group that we have in here that's going to come in and take a look at some of the new ideas for the product line. Is there anything else that we're missing from this?
Well, I was just thinking there's all kinds of Doritos, right? You've got your nacho cheese Doritos, you've got your Cool Ranch Doritos. What if we did a kind of taco for each kind of Dorito?
Right. Okay. How many different types of flavors of Dorito are there? I'm just aware of the nacho.
Millions.
Infinite.
So we start small.
Dear
we
God.
start with the nacho cheese.
Okay.
We expand it to the Cool Ranch.
Oh my. Okay, a Cool Ranch. I see. That's.
We go the other direction from Cool.
I like that there's another direction.
We go with fire.
Fire.
Yeah.
Now, is that real fire or is that a euphemism for a seasoning?
It's a flavor.
Oh, it's a flavor. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
They've officially named fire a flavor now. It turns out it's hot with a hint of lime.
It's hot with a hint of lime. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, I'm sure, in the lower southern western United States. Okay. All right. That's amazing. Well, I like your idea, but I don't want to do that all at once because we're going to have to print out a lot of different wrappers
for
all those flavors. So what we should do is, I think we should, if this goes well with the test group today, I think we should kick this off with one flavor of Dorito. And then if there is a real hankering for it, if there's a real calling for it, after they've gone insane with the need for a new flavor of Dorito taco shell, then we hit them with a new flavor of Dorito taco shell. What do you guys think of that?
That's a good idea. I like it.
That's great.
Well, that's why they pay me the big bucks, boys. Okay, well, I think we can rack this up. Does anyone want to go to the Chinese buffet? I hear it today is buy one, get one free.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Chinese buffet because my favorite thing to get when I'm there is I get the little donut holes. I don't think it's actually like Chinese food because I don't think they invented the donut holes. I'm pretty sure Dunkin' Donuts invented the donut hole, but they stole it. They put powdered sugar on there, I guess, and it makes it Chinese.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like a win for everybody.
Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 120. My name is Ben Bumhofer, and with me, as always, is John Jagger. How's it going, John?
Hi, Ben. I'm excited to be here. We're already firing on all cylinders tonight, so I'm ready to talk about World of Warcraft now. Please, God, can we talk about World of Warcraft
We are definitely firing on all cylinders. You can taste the lime zest.
I think that's fire, as we just discovered, right?
Exactly. With us this week is Mick Montgomery. How's it going, Mick?
I'm doing excellent, guys. Thanks so much for having me back on the show. I think this makes appearance number 4 for me. So
I think so.
I'm excited about that.
You're going to have to battle it with... Yeah, battle it off with Jocelyn and Roe, I think, at this point.
I'm sure they'll make it back on the show before I do.
We'll see.
Well, it depends on how many people you make angry this time, Nick.
It's true. It's true. It's very, very true. So I'm going to be on my best behavior. I know that I'm not allowed to talk about LFR, right? I'm not allowed to talk about LFR. I'm not allowed to talk about, apparently, someone has issues with Heroes of the Storm, I saw on Twitter. So
too bad for them.
I think my next visit, I won't be allowed to talk about fast food products either. So there we go.
Well, if they're against any of those things, then why they're listening to this show is beyond me, because we consistently talk about each and every one of those things on a weekly basis.
Very true. Very true. Mick, what have you been up to? It's been like a week or two since we've talked.
Yeah, it has been. I have been actually really chugging through World of Warcraft ever since the patch dropped. I think in a really interesting and fun way. I have really adjusted my play style. I am no longer kind of progressive raiding at all by choice, and for a lot of reasons for that. But the good news is that I'm taking that time that I would have given to World of Warcraft, and I'm now playing the game from a more exploring, getting out there into the world standpoint. So I don't have this real rush that I have to accomplish something in order to tweak this piece of gear to get it just a little bit better, or to craft this thing to make that better, to get this gold so I can buy this enchant. You know, all the things that you do when you're progressive raiding. So what I'm really doing right now is, you know, I'm in this position where if I'm in Tanan Jungle and I see this really cool, weird-looking cave over here, I can go over and explore all the ins and outs of that cave and figure out what's going on in there and discover all the fun stuff inside of it. But at the same time, I don't have this rush that I can't get all the experience I can out of that. So I'm really finding myself spending more time exploring, a lot less time. It's funny, I'm not actually even trying to get my flying achievement per se, but I do find myself out in the world exploring and hunting for treasures and killing rares and doing all that kind of stuff. And I've found that that's been really fun and rewarding to kind of go off in that direction and not necessarily be as focused on, you know, raid progression.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is that's a big change, very big change, and I'm glad that it's actually, you know, really made you love the game again. It's one of those things where sometimes a slight tweak and just an entirely different viewpoint and experience just, you know, shines the light on something so different than what you're used to that it just draws you in so much, and that it's really cool that that's happening.
Well, I think too what I've found as I've gone through this thing. So, long story short, or a good short story is, I went into the Cave of Betrayal on Tanan Jungle, which is if you go in there and you wait, the ghost of Ironbeard, who we see in Nagrand, over there on the Horde dock area thing, his ghost kind of for some reason spawns there, and if you take him down again, he gives you another toy to play with and all the good fun stuff. But as I'm kind of going through this cave, I'm going over to Wowhead and I'm doing research and I'm wondering what this is, and I'm listening to sound effects and the music and all these things that I'm taking in, and you begin to remember just how magical the world of Warcraft actually is when you actually take the time to appreciate it, when you're not trying to rush to that next goal that you set for yourself. And I think that I've had friends who, you know, played this game from the beginning and have said to me, you know, one of the things I really liked in between that span of vanilla and Burning Crusade was the fact that I really got to explore the world and found out how deep they had designed the world itself and how detailed it was. And I think that that's what I'm, at this stage, getting a little bit more opportunity to understand that I wouldn't have understood had I not put raiding as a back burner priority.
Gotcha. Okay. That is pretty sweet. What else are you doing? Tinkering around with, playing?
Well, yeah, there's always a fair amount of Heroes of the Storm action that's been taking place, and I have been, you know, fortunate to be able to lead a team into the Heroes of the Pants tournament. And so Team Stormcast has started practicing and kind of getting to know each other a little bit better. I mean, all five of us have played together, but never really in a hey, let's work out, you know, compositions, and hey, let's work out, you know, roles and who's going to do call outs. We've never really done that thing. So we're kind of going and just getting to know each other a little bit better. And we've done a couple of practice nights. We're going to be doing another one this week. And then hopefully we'll get some of our first round matchups out of the way. Right now we're just really excited to have the tournament so that we have this reason to kind of focus play Heroes of the Storm instead of just kind of randomly jumping on and hitting Quick Match or Hero League or whatever it is.
Very cool. John, how about you? What's going on?
Well, for me, you know, there's been something that for like the past 3 weeks or something like that I've been meaning to talk about that I did in WoW, and I keep forgetting to talk about it. So I'm going to start by what I did quite some time ago, which we had Lita on, and she talked about the Iron Man Challenge. And I started the Iron Man Challenge. I started it on my rogue and went through, and so I ran into an interesting problem with it, which is I'm following the rules, doing everything I need to do. You know, the first bit isn't hard because they're giving you, you know, gear that isn't green and isn't giving you stats and stuff like that right away. So you're kind of already geared for doing what it is. So it's not like it starts off tough or anything like that. But the problem that I ran into is I was doing quests in the Plaguelands. I'm playing an undead rogue. And I went out to get the Murloc that the guy wants for a pet. And I go down there, And I'm like, all right, well, finally this quest is going to be easy, because that quest is actually kind of hard to do when you have heirlooms, because you kill the Murloc too fast. Because it's one of those where you have to get it down to a certain amount of health, and then you have to click a thing, and there's this quick little casting time, but you always kill it before it manages to go off. So basically, I went in, and I went down there, and I'm like, well, finally I don't have to worry about it. I start fighting this Murloc, and it just explodes and dies right before I click the item. And I was like, what happened? Like, and I'm looking around for like a mage that was like, you know, some well-to-do mage that was like, I'll save you, and shot down a fireball or something, which didn't happen. And I'm looking around, I'm like, all right, that's weird. So I start fighting another Murloc. Sure enough, it gets down. It's like, it's all right. And I can click the item. And I go to click it, and another explosion of fire, and the Murloc dies. And I was like, what is going on that I am just slaughtering all of these Murlocs? And that's when I realized that I had the Summer Fire Festival buff on me that causes occasional fire damage when you're fighting. So then I panicked, because I thought, am I not supposed to have this on to still qualify for the Iron Man challenge? Like, is this cheating? Am I now gaming the system?
Yeah, that's with the challenge, you become way too paranoid about buffs and what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. So I panicked, and I went back to town, and I was like, I don't know if I'm supposed to play with this thing on. And you can't remove it either, is the other thing. It's not a case of just like, I just don't want it, let me just right-click it and it's gone. Like, it's on there. So I got on Twitter, and I asked, and I got my answer that it's okay. You can play with it on, but it still kind of felt like it was out of the spirit of it. You know, I'm not doing it really for the challenge. I don't care if I make it onto a leaderboard. I don't want to brag about how far I got with it. Like, I'm just kind of excited about it because it's, you know, it's going to make WoW it's going to be a challenging new experience in WoW, and I'm not getting that if something's making it easier. Like, it kind of defeats the purpose of it. So as a result, I stopped, and I just haven't gone back yet. So, so far I've liked it, but I'm not really into any part where you're actually being, you know, hindered by the rules of the challenge so far. So it's not like the only difference between this and a rogue I would make is I would take heirlooms now, but that's about it. So I'll, you know, give updates if I stick with that. You know, other things have come up that I've played that has taken my time. So,
well, you know, it's a good thing that you're not trying to go for the leaderboards, because otherwise, if you got on there, if the Midsummer Fire Festival counted, there'd be an asterisk by your name, and it'd be, you know, Midsummer Deflategate or something like that. And you just, yeah, exactly. You don't want that on your record. You really don't.
Yeah, you want a clean record if you're going to be on a leaderboard. So other than that, I've still been plugging away at my Sith Warrior in SWTOR. I have a story involving that I will at some point tell Ben. And Ben can tell me if I should repeat it on the air or if doing so would make me sound like I should go to prison. So that's a teaser for a future episode, maybe.
Post-show.
Let's just say that I am a person who typically always plays the good guy. Like, it is very difficult for me to play the bad guy in games. I have a very hard time, even in these virtual worlds, picking the mean, aggressive, I'm a bad person option. It's very hard for me to do. And I have been playing a very bad person. And I kind of now understand the dark side and its appeal. So I will tell that story to Ben in confidence that it will not be repeated to anybody ever. And he can tell me if I should repeat it on the show.
Okay. I'm really curious now. I can't wait till the show's over and we go for a walk next door or something.
I don't know if I should tell anybody this story. I'm pretty sure it's going to get me thrown in jail.
If we do go for a walk, do I have to worry about you murdering me?
No.
Okay.
Well, but you might worry I will murder you. Anyway, so yeah, so that stuff happened. Yeah, I've been, I raided with you guys.
Yeah.
We did
the whole night.
Yeah, the whole night I didn't wait till the trash was done and show up and be like, "Hey guys, heard you were on a boss."
Or log in on the last 10 minutes when we're going to break and go do heroes.
Yeah, but a lot of those times I don't stick around for the heroes part anyway, so it's fine. It's fine. I usually will show up to help someone get a wolf mount that I already have, so I don't feel too bad for myself. Yeah, that raid was fun. I really liked the look of the boss. It was LFR, so I don't really feel like I have a grasp of the encounters or anything like that, but it seems all right. There's a lot of trash, a lot more trash for my taste, but it's like I said in the raid. At least now it looks entertaining when I'm watching you guys fight trash, whereas before it didn't entertain me at all. Now I get to see bombs flying all over the place and all sorts of exciting stuff. So, very excited about that. Beyond all of that, I have been playing some Heroes of the Storm, as we all have.
Really?
But because the same thing is on both our lists, Ben, I'm going to kick it over to you, and we can start by talking about the Heroes of the Pants tournament and Game 1 between Team Chocolate versus Smells Like Team Spirit.
Yeah. Well, before we start, I would like to say that my team captain is in the chat room.
So so you're going to lie or something?
Yes. Okay, so we had our match on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Just so that everybody knows, before we start this, I've been helping with the training class at work this week. I will be for the next 2 weeks. So I'm really tired. I'm getting up, 4 hours earlier than I'm normally getting up, but I'm still staying up as late. So I'm really tired this week.
Okay.
That being said, our match started at 9 o'clock and I was already really tired.
All right.
But that is not that did not affect the game at all. I just wanted to throw that out there just to say, you know, what I've been up to, because I like filling people in. So, I don't know how your pre-match stuff was, but ours went something like this.
Okay, I can give you a comparison when we're done. Also, for the record, my team captain is also in the chat room. So, what were you doing? Did you just wave at the camera?
No, there's something. I was trying to grab it.
I thought you were just like suddenly became a cat and was like, eh. Anyway, sorry. It just distracted me. I was like, what is Ben doing? He's transformed.
Okay. So
my
anyways,
team captain's in the chat too.
Yeah, pre-match. So my whole team, we're there. We're kind of talking. The energy levels of everybody was different. Okay, so I'm kind of tired. One of our members is kind of tired. We're both kind of like there, but I'm doing I'm doing my best to stay positive and be happy. Excuse me. And just, you know, really enjoy myself, have fun. That's what I'm in the tournament for.
Right.
Just to let you know, I was kind of drafted and mostly asked if I wanted to do it. So, I mean, I'm there to have fun. It's going to be great. I mean, if one of our teams wins the whole tournament, the entire thing is basically prize-wise. You get like a signed print, which that's really cool.
He's coughing. None of you can see that right now, but Ben is dying. He thought about winning, and it nearly killed him.
Exactly.
He's getting water. We'll narrate this for people who are listening on the podcast. This was an emotional tournament. People.
Yes, it was. It
Hearts
really was.
And souls were in it. So, so forgive Ben for getting a little choked up.
Yes.
Continue,
okay.
Ben.
So, you know, I'm trying to stay positive, be happy. Our other person, you know, kind of tired, but, you know, he's into it. He's ready for it. Our team captain is, you know, talking about strategies and like, okay, well, I think if they run with this, we should try to counter it this way, and, you know, talking everything. And then our two other members are like, they're into it, but they're both super competitive. So they're very nervous and anxious. And the idea that it's going to be streamed, which I didn't really know it was until like that day. And even more so, I didn't know it was going to be streamed to 3 different Twitch channels. Someone who I was playing against, who runs this Twitch channel with me, never let me know.
Okay, so real quick, while we're on that topic, let me just say I learned how to host someone else's live stream seconds before it happened. Like, I knew Ro was going to stream and do some shoutcasting on it, but I didn't know we were going to be able to share the stream as well. And so what happened is Scott Johnson and Willie Dills and myself all decided, hey, Ro's streaming this. We should stream it too.
So 4. Okay, 4.
Yeah,
4 streams.
So Ro was streaming, Dills was streaming, Scott was streaming, and we were streaming.
That's like being on ESPN 1, 2, and the Ocho.
So, no
Great.
pressure.
No pressure. So
see, Ro got lucky. He didn't realize it until the very end.
Oh, that's great. But, okay, so, you know, totally different energy levels and everything, and to try to break the mood, you know, to get everybody happy and kind of on the same wavelength, I went ahead and bought the Candy King Muradin skin, which I vowed I would never buy because he's a proud dwarf. And look at him. Just look at him. So, you know, pre-show, we're talking and everything, and I revealed, I'm like, okay, guys, like, I bought Candy King Muradin, it's gonna be awesome, and I'm all, who wants some candy? And, you know, just totally try to make everything fun and happy and stuff, and it kind of worked for a second there. And then the match starts, you know, we see who you guys are playing, and we're like, oh, they didn't go with that. Oh, they're not that. Oh, they're not that. Okay, well, that's interesting. And, you know, we're like, we're going to do this. Match starts. My team leader and I are in the bottom lane because it's the Eternal Conflict map, which is really good. Everyone else was in top. And then all of a sudden we see a new Brack pop up. We're like, oh, we got a new Brack down here. Okay, cool. La, la, la. And then 3 other people show up and we're like, oh, crap. And, well, we'll just say that that's the turning point and we lost the match.
That was quick.
It was a pretty, I think it was 14 some minutes long overall.
You had for most of the match like a 3-level difference, and at that point we couldn't bring it back. There have been times that, you know, on different teams or makeups or whatever I have, but you guys were playing extremely aggressive towards us because you could, and pressing every advantage that you could, and you guys owned the map. You did great. You know, you weren't picking on us or anything like that. It's how the match went, and it worked out really well. From watching the shoutcast, from playing the game and everything like that, we learned a lot about how we work together, about what we need to do for certain objectives and everything. So I'm really looking forward to the next match with, I think we're playing Jules' team next. But, yeah. I mean, we've learned that we need to kind of adjust our flow and who we're playing and what we're doing and stuff. So I'm super excited, and it's going to be great. But I will say, we were destroyed. You guys did a good job. But I still had a good time. I enjoyed myself.
And that's what's most important.
Mm-hmm.
So let me say this. I want Ben's team to do great. This was, in fact,
because
the
you can
only
beat
match
us in the next round.
Right. This was the only match I wanted you to lose. Other than that, I hope you guys just dominate, because I'd love to see you in the brackets when we have an actual, like, you know, best out of round and all of that. So I hope you go on to dominate every match you go to. Mick, same for your team. We're not in the same division, so the only way we get to play you is if you advance. But I got a good feeling about your team, so I think we will hopefully see you at some point. I mean, if we make it that far, we'll see how Team Chocolate does. But we were very nervous as well going in. We had a bunch of practice games right before we started because we're like, we need to just make sure.
Yeah. So here's the fun thing. I didn't get a chance to warm up at all because I was actually being interviewed by Ro before the match for realm maintenance.
So like, you didn't even get like a quick match in.
No, I didn't get anything in before that.
Oh.
So
that's a hard way to start.
Let's schedule a different time next time. In all honesty, I don't remember which one was scheduled first. That doesn't matter. It's all in the past. We move forward from here. But let's just say that we had some things stacked against us that didn't help.
Yeah.
And then the day after the match, Muradin was hotfixed. So
yes. So there you go.
That was even more fun.
That was the problem. Muradin was busted. But it was a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun doing it. We're going to play another match on Sunday, I believe, is the current plan, is when we will be playing again. I think you'll be playing again too. So we might actually both be playing Jules' team that night. We'll see what happens. And I guess Ro, who I thought did a phenomenal job shoutcasting that match. I'm going to just say, if you want to see the match, you can go to twitch.tv/Realm Podcast. Check out past broadcasts. You can watch the match with him doing the commentary for it. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Me too.
He starts throwing in chocolate puns like crazy at the end. I think it was really great. He's going to do that, and Mick, the rumor is you're going to try and join him for at least some of these.
We've chatted about it back and forth on Twitter and in direct message. So I think, I've been itching to get into get some casting in for Heroes, and I offered to help. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend all the matches, obviously, because that's just the way life is. But yeah, I hope Ro and I get a chance to cast some of these matches together. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and so far I think that's the goal here. Obviously, this is not a tournament that is, there's no double ban, non-match crap going on. This is not something that's going to get you qualified for the regionals for the BlizzCon finals. Nope. But at the same time, I think that, Heroes needs a lot more of this type of stuff right now. And that's really, I think, something I would encourage, not just really Heroes of the Storm players, but also World of Warcraft players who might be listening who like to do a lot of PvP. There needs to be more of these kind of informal fun tournaments happening out there that folks can easily jump into and have a good time. And great. It's great that Frog Pants, and I know Gorath has put in a ton of work, are organizing this so that we can all basically have a structure to have fun in. But so yeah, it's great, and we need more of this kind of stuff, because everything else is really either super try-hardy or super pro, and it's good to just have something very kind of easy to get involved with. And it's one of the reasons I wish Heroes, Hearthstone, all these competitive games that Blizzard's releasing had some in-game methodology for creating some sort of tournament matchup versus having to do all this kind of, work through all these subsidiary websites and stuff like that. I wish it was a little bit more built in and easy to pull off.
Yeah, that's something Ben and I were actually talking about earlier today, is their custom game tool needs a lot of work. I mean, for one thing, whoever's hosting it has to pick the map before they get in, which means you have to be having a dialogue about who wins a coin toss that you determine through another website, to pick the map, and pick the map before the groups are even formed. Then everybody gets in there. You get everybody in their slots, and then they're picking it. And then when the match is over, it boots everybody back out, and you have to do the invites all over again. So it would be really nice to see some of that cleaned up a little bit to make it a little easier to use those tools yourself, to where you don't have to rely on other websites, other tools, other means, or a little like, well, we got it to work.
Yeah. I think that's, and that to me is something that, not a lot of games are even offering, so I'm sure Blizzard is like, well, no one else is, why do we have to? But I think that, organizing this type of activity is something people want to get into and do. And the fact that it's missing from all of these games that have a heavy, competitive esport flavor to them, I think is a real thing. I mean, I to bring this, full circle back to World of Warcraft. I mean, wouldn't it be fun if you could, organize in a much easier fashion a simple 3v3 player versus player tournament or some sort of, battle games set up to where you can have, 10 versus 10 or something like that, informally, and set it up and say, everyone can send invites out through the game UI and all that good stuff, so that it would be a little bit more easy for folks to create these special events. And I think probably what I'm more leaning towards is the ability to create events within the game is something that I think is really necessary.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So besides Heroes of the Pants, Ben, what have you been doing?
I have been grinding rep. Whee!
Control yourself, Ben. You're having too much fun. You're going to make everybody jealous.
Well,
right.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've been going to Tanan. I've been trying to, get revered with the different factions so that I can get that pathfinding achievement, so that when flying does come, I don't have to worry about it. I get it first day, and then I can actually explore the world at my leisure, which I'm really looking forward to, especially that zone. But I gotta say, I am well along with it, like super far. I am already revered with the headhunters because I've been trying to, do all those objectives daily, in which generally I do. I am really close to revered with the Order of the Awakened because I've tried to do the Apexis quest every single day too, but sometimes I'm just kind of like, I don't want to try to find 4 more. Yeah. Or, something like that. So, I just kind of go. Old Man Frank's told me of a great place where you can just find them, so I go there. Once I get revered, I'll let you know where that is.
Okay.
But the Saber Stalkers is the one that I was actually really worried about because I absolutely hate just grind killing for rep. It is annoying, it is frustrating, and even though I'm a mage and I've got great damage, that whole area is filled with gold elites, and I can't solo that stuff. Like, not reliably. If I pull more than one, I'm dead. Because glass cannon. Great. So, all this week so far have been, hey, you get a whole bunch of rep with the Saber Stalkers if you do the daily quest that's associated with the orc lady who's standing by the fire. You get 100 teeth from just various animals around Tanan, and then you come back and then boom, you get a ton of rep. Even more so, if you get the Dark Moon Fair buff, that's even more rep. So this has been a great week for me with that. So I found a really cool place out in like the swampy area where these little like tiny snakes just keep spawning. And I've got a pretty decent AoE, so I just kind of stand there and just keep casting and casting, and I get that 100 teeth like max maybe 10 minutes.
That's going back to Ben, that's kind of where I was exploring the other night, and that's where I found that same little trick. I'm like, wow, there's like a bazillion snakes right here.
Exactly.
If I AoE the crap out of this, I'm going to have this done in no time.
Oh yeah, it was great. And then I did the weekly quest with that, which, just cross-realm zone hopped, group finding. Then I actually went through and ground rep. I've done it with 3 different groups. The first one was great. The tank was awesome. The second one, we didn't have a tank. It was not so great. And the third one had a tank. It was great. And I'm actually revered with them now, which I'm super happy about.
Nice.
Now I just need 1,000 more of their claws so I could get the freaking pet that they have on their rep. So I'll probably be exalted with them at some point soon. But, that's about it. All I've been doing, just working towards that, doing what I can to gear up my monk for raid, and raid last night was a ton of fun. So
yeah, we had a good time.
Definitely. But with that, you know what? We talked a whole lot about food. We talked a bit about heroes. Let's talk about some news.
Don't worry, loves. Cavalry's here.
For ire. Stay a while and listen. Drink. Hellstream. Blizzard News.
It just cuts off so suddenly sometimes. It
well,
surprises
you wanted it shorter.
It's like, yeah!
Yeah.
Just your fade.
Yeah, I could do that. I could probably work around that. So, I gotta say this because I am so super excited about it, and it kind of goes with the trend, but there's gonna be a link in the show notes of a reel from Comicon for a certain movie that's coming out. The Star Wars movie. It is great. You need to check it out. And we're not going to talk about it much other than by saying it looks like Star Wars.
Yeah,
It looks like Star Wars.
Yeah. It looks like I watched it a little bit while we were doing the pre-show with not even the sound on. I just watched the images, and it reminds me back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember this when they did the first Star Wars, but they would do these types of kind of little documentaries on the making of, and I try and figure out any way I could watch those things as much as I possibly could, and to see another one come out was just really incredible.
Definitely,
yeah. It was amazing. It feels different than it felt when I was getting hyped up about episode 1, back before we knew. But there was a whole like mania and excitement around those movies, and it's coming back, but it's different this time. Like it's not the same. Like before, I was analyzing every frame of every trailer and watching it a million times. And I feel like in a lot of ways, I think Mick, you were saying something like this too earlier. Like that was the dawn of the movie trailer, like where people really just dug into them, and it became a big commodity where it's like has its own section on iTunes and like all sorts of stuff like that. So. But this was different. It was just like, it was like saying they're making another Star Wars. But when I say that, I mean they're making another Star Wars like A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Like, they're not making another movie called Star Wars. They're making another Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference.
The huge difference is if you look back at like the making of documentary thing that isn't really a documentary because it's not narrated and like guided at all for episode 1, there's blue screens everywhere, there's green screens everywhere, they talk so much about digital creation and everything like that. This little 3-minute like preview thing or whatever in the voiceover talks about it's mostly practical effects. This is what we're working with. They show a camera that's using film. They're not just like, capturing it digitally so they can muck around with it a whole bunch. I mean, it feels like it's going back to its roots. So, anyways, sorry about the Star Wars talk. Just had to throw it out there because I saw it before the show, and I'm so excited for this that I might even install SWTOR, and I felt really dirty to say that. So, moving on to WoW news. There's a movie coming out, and there's a lot about it at San Diego Comicon. But the thing is, we won't know any of it until tomorrow at 2:30. There's actually a Warcraft movie panel there. I doubt it's going to stream because San Diego doesn't really do a whole bunch of stuff like that. I doubt you're going to see video of it because, again, Comicon doesn't really do that. But if you want to have kind of an idea about what's going on with it, download the Legendary VR app. You can find that on, I know, the iTunes store. It's on the Android store. I'd be very surprised if it's on the Windows Mobile store, but you never know. But it's made specifically for the Google Cardboard, which is fantastic if you don't know what that is. But if you don't have one, you can still view it anyway. And, you pull it up on your phone and pretend that your phone is like a VR headset, because when you move around, you're looking around and all that stuff. It's really neat, but it gives you a look into what Stormwind looks like in the movie. And Mick, I mean, you saw the preview last year at BlizzCon. I know, John, you did too. But yeah. Mick, what were your feelings on this? Because I'm assuming you've seen it.
The VR?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I happen to have close friends who work on the Warcraft movie. I think there's the work that's being done, and obviously the application is not necessarily something completely born from the team behind the movie, but at the same time, I think what you see though is the same art direction that you're going to come to expect from the feature film, which is really basically high detailed resolution or rendering of Stormwind. And something that is really quite breathtaking. I think that regardless of how we obviously we don't know how the movie's going to turn out, story wise and all that good stuff. But regardless of that, I think that what we do know is the attention to detail that's being put into the art direction for this is pretty amazing, and really what the VR app does outside of showcase, Google's little fun cardboard mask that you get to wear, and the potential for VR, experiences. And I know Legendary Pictures is very excited about what they can bring to the VR spectrum. Regardless of it being something for that and something fun for Comicon, what it does showcase is really where the team has taken the vision of Azeroth and Warcraft for their film, and the high attention to detail and the passion. And it really does help that a lot of the folks that are on the VFX team are Warcraft players and fans, and I know that they all have a lot of respect for the source material and really do want to bring it to life. So I think that visually, we could expect to see some really great things out of this. And I think the app is just an appetizer, to be honest.
Very cool. John?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Like I tried it out. I did my best to simulate virtual reality. I locked myself in the bathroom with all the lights off, had it up, and went through.
Did you duct tape it to your head?
I didn't duct tape it to my head, but I did spend more than a time than I needed to going, what is the best place for this to be? And then forgot that, like, oh yeah, part of what makes this VR is I can look around. Because at first I was just watching it like a movie. I was just like sitting there just staring at it with and then I was like, oh yeah, I can look around. I start doing all of that. It's, on my screen, I don't know how it looks with Google Cardboard, but it was a little blurry and a little muddy. But from what we've seen from when we were actually at BlizzCon, if you listen to what we said after we saw it during our BlizzCon reactions and all that, I think the big thing to take away from this is this movie looks like Warcraft. Yeah. Like, if you were worried that this was going to be like generic fantasy movie with Warcraft slapped on the title, it isn't. It looks like Warcraft. And while on that thing it kind of looks muddy and fuzzy and it's kind of whatever, the footage we saw from the actual movie was just mind-blowing. Most people know Ben and I don't play a lot of Alliance. We're definitely for the Horde, but even our cold Horde hearts were melted and gleeful at the sight of Stormwind as it was rendered for that movie. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and one of the cool things too is I haven't been following a ton, but from what I have seen from the Twitter feed, is the props that they have there look so stylish like Warcraft, but molded to fit into a real world as well. Like the armor, the shields, everything. I mean, it has that feel for it, and visually, this movie hits the nail on the head. It's going to be great in that aspect.
Yeah, I think what it is in a lot of ways is it's taking the fidelity and just jacking it up by 100%. Yeah. We all know that Warcraft is not the most it hasn't always been the most graphically sophisticated game. It's gotten obviously a lot better over the years. But we all know there are other video games out there that have the fidelity level of their graphics much more higher than World of Warcraft. But so you're basically taking that and that kind of idea, and you're ripping it right into a realistic portrayal of it. And everything feels very grounded. Everything feels very realistic. There's nothing so high fantasy that it seems out of place. And I think that's the stuff that we're really seeing out of the art direction. And even the rendering, the 3D actual physical rendering of Ogrim that everyone has seen photos of from Comicon, he just looks like an actual, legitimate creature versus a work of fantasy sculpture,
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool as well.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. One thing that I found really funny, but not funny at first, it kind of took me a second to realize that, is there's going to be a prequel book written by Christy Golden, which that's pretty cool. But then I thought, okay, so
written by Christy Golden?
Well, no, that's fine. I love her writing. It's great. But the thing that's funny is that in order to get the full story in the game, you need to read a book that happens about stuff not in the game. So in order to get the full story of the movie, you need to read a book that takes place before the movie.
Well, the difference is that movies, unlike the game, they need to tell a complete and compelling story to be successful. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't worry about like, hey, you're not going to have any idea of what's going on in this movie if you don't read the book. You might get maybe some more out of it, but at least we're not going to have what we had this time, where it was, all right, so we've locked up Garrosh, and that's that. Okay, Garrosh is on Draenor, which is whole, I guess, and he's talking to his dad, and how did he get off Pandaria? What's going on? Like, I don't think we're going to have that moment if we don't read the book.
But listening to both of you guys, you make a great point about this idea that I've heard from other players before, which is, gosh, this is all great. Too bad it's not part of the game. Would you rather see one of two things? Would you have rather seen that storyline for Garrosh played out in some sort of, like, transitional quest line between expansions? And if they're not going to use that storyline within the context of a book, would you be more interested in a book that takes place in the world of Warcraft but doesn't offer that same story stopgapping that has been traditionally the case for really the last several expansions?
Okay, imagine this. You defeat Garrosh in Siege of Orgrimmar. You get a quest to go to Pandaria. When you get there, he's escaped, and you have a quest line that you follow him and track him. You get to the Dark Portal, it changes color, and all these orcs start rushing out.
Sure, yeah, definitely.
That's really all it needed.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
To answer your question from my perspective, we spent a year in Siege of Orgrimmar without any new content of any kind. I would have much preferred that, whether it seemed... I mean, I got a little bummed to see the destruction of... what is it? Theramore? Yeah. When we got to see that in-game, because compared to what it was in the book versus what it was in the game, was a pretty huge difference in quality and what it was, and it was kind of almost comical in the game, whereas it was an actual tragedy in the book. Mm-hmm. But even that, at least they told the story of what happened, more or less. You know, you got to see, hey, Theramore got blown up. Like, you got to see it in some form. So I'm not expecting a masterpiece. I just think it would have been nice if, you know, kind of along the lines of what Ben said, if there had been something that just said, like, hey, we need you to go, as the champions who defeated Garrosh, you know, you need to go stand as witnesses for his trial. And maybe you show up after everything happened. Like, maybe you get there and everything's in disarray and they tell you, oh, he's gone.
Yeah.
But...
and you can still have the book that covers the trial and all that stuff, but at least we're more, you know, of a piece of the action as opposed to just, oh, now orcs are coming.
Yeah, I totally see that. I guess we're it's probably going to continue to happen this way, because I believe at the end of the day, Chris Metzen likes to fancy himself a book author, and this is an opportunity for him to be a part of getting the book out there. You know, and I think that he values. And you know, it's another opportunity. I think he values the process of writing a novel and giving that experience to fans. I also think that at the end of the day, it's another product for Blizzard to sell outside of the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I will say I do have one of Chris Metzen's books. It's called Snowfight, and it is fantastic.
Yes.
Just because it's a kid's story doesn't mean it's bad.
Right. But
his first book, the one that he wrote that features, I think it's Uther and in the Old Orc. What's the Old Orc's name? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I know. Like Ettrig.
Yeah. It's not a bad book. It's a pretty solid book. So,
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I believe we live in a world where we can have both.
Mm-hmm.
He can write his or play his role in the creation of a novel. I don't think that necessarily means that there doesn't have to be a that means no story in WoW, which is kind of what they did in this case, where it was like, all right, well, you're going to get nothing. I mean, they went in and did that Iron Horde invasion questline. Why couldn't that questline have included the story of Garrosh getting free? Like, they did a pre-launch event. The pre-launch event should have really told the story of where we were going. But
yeah.
Well, I think, though, too, if you're also looking at a way to involve a terrific author in the process of storytelling in Warcraft, authors do more than just, structuring dialogue on a page and typing out the words and such. A big part of that is kind of how the story flows narratively from point A to point D,
Definitely.
C, all that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, you can work with great authors on special appearances to do something like you guys are talking about and to help sculpt how the game's narrative works within the context of the gameplay. That too is also an interesting concept.
Yeah, Gears of War 3 actually did that. They brought in an author who I really like, Karen Travis. She was one of the primary story writers for Gears of War 3, which for a game that most people think is about cover shooting aliens nonstop, a lot of people tend to say, like, hey, the story in 3 is actually really solid and really good. And I think a big part of the reason is they brought in an author who this is what they do to kind of help craft that narrative. I mean, she wasn't sitting down plugging away like, here's the quest text. Like, I don't think they're going to have Christy Golden walk in with the quest designers and be like, all right, let me sit down at the screen. All right, greetings, percentile T. I see you are a fine class, and start typing away at it. But she could come in and say, like, here's my vision for where this story is going and, what I'm going to contain in the book. I'd like to see an experience along this. And they can build that. And I think the lore would be stronger for it.
I really actually agree with you. I think that, and not to say that, we don't have, fantastic storytellers within the Warcraft development team as it is, but I do think it's great when, you see this in television shows all the time where a writer will come in and do a shot on a series, but they're not going to necessarily do the whole season, right? Like even in Game of Thrones, up until this past season, seasons 1 through 4, George R.R. Martin penciled in an episode of the show himself. Same with The Walking Dead. We see Robert Kirkman is written at least one show every season as well. So you have these opportunities for these authors to come in and be a part of these television series. We've known that Stephen King has done this, and a lot of other writers have done this as well. So on that same line, you look at a director like James Gunn, who did Lollipop Chainsaw and wrote all of the story and all of the dialogue for that game. It's an opportunity to bring in writers and creators from the outside to come in and kind of, I think what is really needed right now a lot too in the game, inject another voice with some new ideas into the storytelling as a whole, and it's just an opportunity to do that. It's great that the person is going to write a book, but what if they actually had a hand in writing something significant for a quest series within the game or something like that?
Just don't bring in George R.R. Martin. I don't want to look for another war chief.
He'll kill Thrall and Jaina and everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I have a ton to say. Well, not a ton. I have a lot to say about what you just said because I think it's a brilliant point, but I have a feeling, based on what we're talking about,
I was just about to do that.
Ben would like to play a bumper.
Shut it!
Roundtable.
And welcome to the Roundtable, where we discuss in-depth the issues that mean the most to us, the players. That's a weird way of saying that. This week's Roundtable topic is all about story,
Story!
Perfect lead-in!
I know, look at that. Look at us setting it up. So, I think Mick really said something special about this. When we saw the debut of Warlords of Draenor, we were at BlizzCon. We were sitting next to Apple Cider Mage, who's been on the show before, And we all kind of had the same gut reaction of like, oh, this looks like a lot more orcs and a lot of kind of another dude bro expansion, so to speak. Like, you know, just the kind of like heavy metal, we're awesome, Iron Horde, guitars, Rockstar. And some people are excessively critical about that, maybe, with their opinion on Blizzard. I mean, I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing. Your opinion's your opinion, but like some people, like for that is a shutdown. I don't want anything to do with you. It's not the part of Blizzard I like, but it's a part of what made the game that I like. So it's tied to it. So I don't want to completely distance ourselves from it. I don't want them to deny the things that they're passionate about, that they care about. If they like superheroes and heavy metal and rock and roll, more power to them. But what Mick was saying about they could use a new voice in there, I think is super critical, because that's how they branch out. They don't need to necessarily branch out by saying, well, we need to hire a whole new development team and we need to get all sorts of... Bring someone else to be a new creative consultant or a writer or a storyteller, and bring someone in who is going to tell that new perspective and is going to take the story, and maybe they sit there and they're like, yeah, it's going to rock 'cause it's going to be like heavy metal. Every time I picture this version of Blizzard, I picture ETC sitting in the chair, literally ETC with his pink little goatee and his horns and all that. And he's just like, this is going to be the best expansion ever. Let's rock. And like, just really ready to just sing one out for everybody. But
yeah, for a second opinion, they throw it to Bill and Ted on the other side of the room as well. They're all excellent.
Yeah. Just one more voice in that room to maybe say, hey, that's cool. Maybe we've been down that road a few too many times. Like, let's try something different. And I'm not saying they need to get somebody, you know, who's going to come in and turn WoW into something that WoW isn't. But it's a big world of Warcraft out there. Like, there's a lot of avenues. There's a lot of stories to be told. There's a lot of unexplored terrain. Like, bring in good creative storytellers and let them come in and tell their stories and change the tone. Because that's kind of what Pandaria felt like in a lot of ways. And I think that's part of why Pandaria is one of my favorite expansions as a result, is it felt totally different.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that, because, you know, you go from vanilla to Burning Crusade, and I think that it kind of reached its pinnacle of good storytelling anyway with Wrath of the Lich King. You know, from there, then things just kind of started getting a little split up, disjointed, and then we go into... at least for the Horde side, it really did feel like heavy orc emphasis at that point. A lot of it is because of Garrosh and his character development, which worked well for a setup to Pandaria. But at that point, it's like, I kind of got enough of that then. Then Pandaria came, and you're right, it's a breath of fresh air. It's something entirely different, entire different culture. Sure, we come and wreck it, but it had just that difference that I think... a lot of people really enjoyed, and I know that a lot of people didn't. They thought it was just the Care Bearer expansion and it was horrible and all that stuff. But you're
going to get that no matter what. You're going to get people who hate an expansion, love an expansion. But you know, my criticism of Pandaria was just simply, well, now you keep going, Ben. You keep talking. You have a big point to make.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the thing about that is that if they had stayed through the whole expansion, they would have seen where that story went, that it ended up in an entirely different place than every other end bit of expansion that has happened. Sure, the end boss, Garrosh, was corrupted with something, but it was his own doing. He wasn't convinced to do something like Deathwing, or convinced to do something like Arthas, or convinced to do something, you know, they had that same story plot going on, and it feels like Draenor is kind of doing the same thing with Gul'dan, except they're just doing the same thing that happened way back when in like Warcraft 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think the story for Warlords is has become very... I think at some point it changed. and it changed in a board meeting or in a conference room or somewhere, but it certainly didn't change within our eye or our expectation of players. And, you know, when we were coming out of the BlizzCon in 2013, everyone was kind of wondering, well, it's great we know the expansion's Warlords of Draenor. Who's going to be the end boss of that? Is it going to be one of those warlords? Is it going to be somebody else? And eventually they kind of came out and said, well, you know, Chilton came out and said, well, Gromash is the last boss for, you know, he's the final boss. He's the big bad for Warlords of Draenor. And so we went, oh, okay, great. Based on the conclusion that we've seen with the recent news about 6.2, and at this point we all know that that's the last raid. And Corey Stockton literally says, you know, it's hard to beat a better end boss than Archimonde. So we go, okay, so wait, the end boss went from Gromash to when did that happen? You know, at what point did it shift? And you know, I had this interesting experience a couple of weeks ago on the Starting Zone. Joe Perez came on the show from Blizzard Watch, and he's a big lore guy, and we talked about a topic very similar to this. And afterwards, just for fun, he and I were talking with the chat room bonus time, and Ann Stickney joined us as well. Just out of the blue, we jumped on our Skype call and we talked, you know, a little bit of extra bonus time, and we all kind of came to this conclusion, and really Anne brought it to our attention. At some point, someone made a decision to really just walk away from the fundamental storyline of Warlords of Draenor and do something else, and we're still not clear what that is. And that's the thing that's a little bit weird about this era of storytelling for Warlords, is we don't have a real strong idea of what the conclusion of this is, because there's been hints that there's something potentially maybe kind of coming, but we don't know what that is or what that even looks like. So if we somehow went from a story that was going to be about the Warlords of Draenor and taking all of them down, and then finally taking down Gromash Hellscream and stopping him from invading Azeroth, that went into helping Khadgar chase Gul'dan through a portal, and then, oh, the Burning Legion is here, and now we're done.
Yay!
Right. So that's a fairly significant narrative shift that I don't think have seen from Blizzard to go, we're going to do this end boss. Never mind. You know, like, that's never happened. Imagine if Wrath of the Lich King, that at some point they went, you know what, guys, we know we called this Wrath of the Lich King, but we've just kind of made a decision that it's not that Arthas is going to be a part of this, but he's not going to be the boss anymore. You know, what? We would all just kind of go, what the hell? And that's the part that's kind of happened here, but kind of hasn't happened here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's when you stop and you think, you're like, wait a minute, this is not the expansion we were told we were getting. Mm-hmm. You can kind of stop and go, well, how did this happen to us?
Right.
Well, it's almost like, and like, this isn't me being negative. This is just me kind of looking at it as best I can from a normal, non-rating person. Okay. So you go through, you finish your questing and everything, and it's like, okay, I'm done questing. I got all the story. And then that's kind of it. So at that point, if any changes happen, whatever, because you're not experiencing that content anyway. But even for the people who are rating, who did see, you know, maybe the coverage at BlizzCon, maybe not, it still didn't feel like it was actually leading up to Gromash. And, I mean, I've been rating the whole expansion, granted not as quickly as some people, but it was never, like, a big deal to go after the Warlords. So the change makes it even more of a big deal, so that I feel like I'm actually accomplishing something more in the end of the expansion, because it's like, holy crap, here comes the Burning Legion. I know they actually matter, whereas the Warlords, it's like, well, I killed one of them as the first boss in Highmaul. They can't be that bad. So, I don't know, maybe they just wanted to up their ante.
It's a weird place for them to be in, because and it's more than just they changed the last boss. I mean, there was supposed to be a whole nother continent that was going to be a reference of what would eventually go on to become Netherstorm in the, you know, in Outland that we know. It was going to be, well, here's Netherstorm. There was talk that they were going to do more with Zangarmarsh maybe. And that just kind of became, well, there's mushrooms in the water, and occasionally there's a little bit of mushrooms up on the ground. There's been a lot of content that's been alluded to or talked about that they've walked away from. And Blizzard walking away from content is sometimes good, and sometimes you just wonder what they're doing. And this is one of those cases where, hey, if they don't believe in that content, then it's probably good that they're walking away from it. But the thing that we keep hearing in interviews and stuff like that isn't like, yeah, we're not doing the Netherstorm stuff because it wasn't good. The thing they keep saying is it wasn't the story we decided we wanted to tell, which makes it very clear the message they're sending is that there was a narrative shift in the middle of this expansion where they said, well, we're going in this direction, now we're going in this direction. But they did say that they were going to have a very... when people kept saying, like, so you're going to have another orc be the final boss of the expansion, like, that's what it's going to be, they kept saying, well, it's going to be a little bit different. We're not really talking about it's going to be different from Garrosh. We promise it'll be different from Garrosh. And then people were like, it sounds like you're going to have another orc as the final boss. And then they kind of let slip the hint that, well, there's going to be a big Burning Legion influence to it. And then, so that was out there beforehand, and you can maybe kind of follow something of an original narrative where, you know, maybe Garrosh dies, maybe as a result Grommash is really upset about it, seeks revenge, and now he is willing to drink the corrupted blood because he needs the strength to conquer, you know, these invaders and all of that. Maybe that's what sets him up as the big bad, and they just decided, well, let's not go that route. We don't want to do that. So it's hard to tell exactly how far that pendulum swung in another direction, whether it was significant or just, you know, a little bit. And I think when we find out what the next expansion is and what the next story is going to be, or what they're going to do between the two, we'll get maybe a better idea of why they made these changes. To me, the big fear is this. My big fear is that people are right, and a lot of these delays and changes are related to the movie. I hope that's not the case. I don't expect that's the case because I don't expect that's the way Blizzard's going to be. But you have a movie that's going to feature a big focus on orcs fighting humans and stuff. So let's wrap this thing up real quick so we can tell an interesting story that will look a lot like what people are going to see in theaters in the summer.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong on that.
I think we all do.
Completely for the record, I say that. That comes from the jaded part of my heart, which some people would say is too much of my heart. I hope I'm wrong. But there is, to play devil's advocate against myself, I went and saw Avatar, right? And Avatar at the time was mind-blowing, and, like, you know, now I look at it and I'm like, yeah, it was an okay movie. But at the time I was like, Avatar! That's like World of Warcraft, the movie. In a lot of ways. It's how it kind of felt, you know?
Plus Pocahontas, plus Dances with Wolves.
It's like Jake Sully got epic flying at the end of the movie. That's why they all liked him. But I got home and I was like, I kind of want to play a troll. Because they're big and blue, I guess. I don't know. But, like, it was that case of, like, oh, saw this thing in this movie. It was really cool. I was like, it should probably be a hunter, too. Because they have bows. So I understand the desire of, like, you go and you see this thing and they're saying, like, check out this world's amazing, and then you want to give them that world to, you know, to play around in. And I think even as fans, we're going to feel some of that pull. So there's that part of me that's like, boy, I hope they don't let the movie dictate the story we're getting. But on the other hand, it's like, well, but what if I really love the movie and I want to come back and it's like, yeah, I want to get into that universe. Like, that needs to be a possibility too. So it might not end up being a bad thing.
Okay. Just go with me on this and hope that I'm right.
Okay.
So, I'm a person who's never played World of Warcraft before. I go and see the movie. I think it's fantastic. It's amazing. I want to go play Orcs versus Humans. I buy World of Warcraft. At that point, if the new expansion's not out yet, then I get the game, I get Warlords of Draenor, I pop in, boom, put it level 90, I get to play Humans versus Orcs. Let's say the expansion is out. I get World of Warcraft, the battle chest. It comes with Warlords of Draenor in it. Boom, I get put up to 90. And you know what? I get to play Orcs versus Humans, and then the expansion is something after that. So either way, they'll get what the movie is saying, and hopefully the expansion won't have anything to do with it. Yeah, that's it.
I can see that.
Mick, you've been kind of silent, mainly because John doesn't shut up.
That's not true. This is the show where people talk for long stretches of time.
That's true. Any thoughts? Any hopes? Any dreams?
I've as a person who's a big fan of story and a person who's done a fair, my own fair share of writing and gone through my own process of trying to tell stories to folks. And I really do appreciate what Warcraft has always brought to the table, and really a lot of Blizzard games, StarCraft as well, by the way, and Diablo, really compelling stories that provide this fantastic structure for gameplay. And that is, to me, the hallmark of what Blizzard has been able to do by creating their real, actual universes that we all then play and get to reiterate in and all that good fun stuff. This is the first time where I'm a bit concerned about what's going on with the storytelling. And I think I'm concerned because this is the first time as a player I really don't understand where things are going. I don't have that thing to look forward to that I have in the past. And I think that if Archimon was always intended, or even at a bait and switch, this is the coup de grace of the expansion. To me, that's a fairly, and I'm, for some people this might be great, but for me personally, it's a bit of a letdown. And so I'm interested to see if there is another chunk of something out of Warlords of Draenor, or if this expansion is an experiment that Blizzard would like to just close the chapter on and close the door on as fast as possible and get on to the next thing. And that's fine too, because I think for me overall, this whole endgame storytelling, this endgame story as a whole just has not lived up to even the previous expansions. I mean, you may not have liked having to deal with Siege of Orgrimmar for 14 months, but at the end of the day, that was a pretty, I think, compelling story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was the first true villain that the World of Warcraft game had created in Garrosh Hellscream.
Yep.
He invaded and destroyed this beautiful place. It was our job to stop him, and we did. And that was a really compelling story. Deathwing may not have been as compelling of a story, but it still provided a structure that everyone understood. But once again, I think Cataclysm waned in a sense that it also had some bit of wandering narrative issues, and at the same time, a long dearth of nothing happening at the very end of it. So those things I always get. We could always argue that Wrath of the Lich King probably is maybe the best job they've done at telling story within the game. You could also argue Burning Crusade did a really good job as well. And so they've always done really good stuff. And right now, this is the first time where I've just gone, not for me, not really digging this. I don't feel at all really compelled to participate in this heroic quest or journey that we're being shown. And this is the first time that I think an expansion from a storytelling perspective has disappointed me.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that there's a part of me that is reserving my final judgment for whatever that next big announcement is on what's coming next. And if it is like, here's the next expansion, I'm going to look back on Warlords and go, what a fantastic start. What a great job on questing. Way to go, guys. Best questing you ever did. That's about all I can say for that expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They really nailed it on the start of that. I went in skeptical to Warlords of Draenor. Skeptical is probably putting it nicely, as people would probably remind me. And the initial questing and what I was doing in the beginning, it made a big-time believer out of me. You go back and you listen to our show right after it came out, and I was like, the questing is great. I'm loving the story. This is super interesting. I'm playing a ton. I couldn't wait to play more of it, and it really held me. And then I finished Nagrand, and just suddenly nothing about the expansion mattered to me anymore. And it's not that the game suddenly started playing badly. There were definitely some system design choices that I don't think were right, but I think they've made improvements in this current patch, but I'm still not really... I'm playing more than I was before, and I'm doing more in the game than I was before, but it certainly hasn't won me over. So the game is still good, but the drive and the story and the stuff that pushes me through that world just isn't pushing this time. And as a result, it makes me more resistant to anything else that comes across. Like, you might have the best Apexis dailies in the world. If I'm not invested on what I'm doing that for, you know, you can say, but it gets you better gear. Well, okay, it gets me better gear, but if I don't feel compelled to use that better gear to see the end of the game, or feel compelled to use that better gear to advance the story and the narrative, then there's no point to it. Like, that's the sticking point for me. So it's not a case of, well, John hates WoW now. Like, I don't.
You always have. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, everybody knows I hate WoW. That's why I do a show about it. That's why I've played it for 10 years. That's why I'm passionate about it.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Hate the game. But the thing of it is that this is the first time where I haven't felt that draw. You know, I have a character that I have my own story around that has had a rich history and adventure through all of World of Warcraft. And when I got to Warlords of Draenor, like, my reaction was like, well, maybe Eos didn't go through the portal on this one. Maybe there was better adventures to be had back in Azeroth Prime. Like, maybe that's where the action actually was. So I'm curious what they do. I think story needs to be their focus next time. And to kind of push this in the direction of why we invited Mick, I hear that he has an interesting idea for how they could present story going in the future.
That is exactly what I was going to say, but you did it, so yay. Yeah, Mick, you actually messaged me in-game. We were talking a little bit about this, and it's something that I wanted to talk about on the show because... you know, this episode obviously shows, previous episodes have showed, we've been kind of down on the storytelling that Blizzard has had in the late game of this expansion. And you came up with an idea that I think could work, that I actually want to spitball between the three of us and have another, you know, boardroom meeting, you know, a Doritos taco meeting about it. And we're going to see what we can come up with.
Right, right. Well, I guess think of this as, I guess what Ben, you're kind of alluding to is, think of me as a wayward junior developer who has scribbled an idea on some notepads and wandered my way into the press conference to pitch an idea. I'm sorry, the big boardroom to pitch an idea to the Lords of Warcraft development. So to kind of frame this a little bit, I think that, you know, a lot of people think that the play of World of Warcraft is divided into two categories. You have PvE and then you have PvP. And then in PvE, you have, you know, questing and kind of that solo adventurer experience that you can also play with your friends, but you can also play by yourself. And then, of course, you have the group dynamic stuff, which is running dungeons and scenarios and, of course, raids at the end and all of that good fun stuff, the end game. And for PvP, you've got different levels and experiences within PvP. You've got world PvP, you have battlegrounds, you have arena, and that stuff. And what I actually think is that you can't look at the game into these two categories of play. You have to really start to look at the game, I think, from a type of player's perspective. And I think that there are, as I've covered and done this game for as long as I have, and you guys as well, there's different types of players. There's the player that wants to be the raider, and whether that's a casual raider or a try-hard raider or a bona fide, you know, progression hardcore raider, you have that player. You have the player that's really into PvP. Mm-hmm. You have the player that's into the nuancial mini games of, you know, battle pets and that kind of stuff. But there is also this player that I've gotten to know and appreciate over the years, which is the player that really doesn't have the time to commit to something like a raid team, doesn't have the time to commit to like a PvP season, And these are the players that, LFR has been great for them, but at the same time, what they're looking for is an experience that takes that single player adventure that they had from the end of like the level cap of the previous expansion to the level cap of the current expansion. And what we got to see in Warlords, I believe, is the best that has ever been. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, guys, is that it stopped once you hit level 100 and it ended. And so what I thought of was, what if that journey didn't end there? What if after level 100 or at level 100, the journey of something epic continued, but I didn't have to participate in a raid to get that experience of epicness? What if I could become a legend without having to step foot into Hellfire Citadel? What if I, as a player, could be challenged by gameplay mechanics that weren't about group coordination, doing my role within the context of a group fight, staying out of the fire, hitting my cooldowns when I need to, and hitting my defensive cooldowns? What if this was about how I progress through something really challenging on my own through a really epic story? How can I have a purpose and a goal as a player to stay involved within this game if I can't do that raiding thing? If I can do LFR, but then that's okay. But I want something that I can do that is challenging, but I don't have the time and the energy to coordinate that with 10 or 15 other people or 25 other or 20 other people. I need something for me that is also challenging. So I thought of this idea that I'm pitching to you guys as the Blizzard head honchos, the Heroic Saga. An idea in which someone is given a chunk of questing that results in challenging gameplay, world exploration, uncovering mysteries, all those things that we like about watching a character progress through our favorite fantasy, sci-fi fantasy novels. That thing that we get to watch a hero go on a journey throughout the course of an expansion or throughout the course of a particular patch. That there's a supplemental storyline that's as compelling or parallel to the storyline that we see resolved in raid content. So that's the idea, the pitch, that we have something great to do that's not just raiding. Because as you guys know, in between your raid nights, you want something fun to do. And killing saber cat hunter dudes is not the answer.
No,
right?
No, definitely not. Definitely
so what if, but the other idea is, you got to keep it fresh, right? It can't just be like, here's a great big huge long quest line, and then some dude burns through that stuff in a weekend. What I'm talking about is content that arrives to you on a weekly basis. And the reason I got this idea is we all know, I'm a big fan, obviously, of episodic television because I do a podcast about one. So, your favorite TV show. Every week, per se, when the show is running, you get a new episode. And you talk about that episode, and you talk about it with your friends, and you love that. So think of the Heroic Saga as episodic content. You get a chapter or an episode of this journey, and then you complete that. And then in a week or maybe 2 weeks after that, another episode is revealed. And you continue on your journey. And you keep going. And along the way, you're picking up really cool stuff. You're picking up your own version of epic gear that is not raid gear, that is something really hard to attain and get, but a full set of armor, and maybe the conclusion of that particular patch, that Heroic Saga for that particular patch, or maybe the whole expansion is, a really epic or legendary weapon that you get to carry with you forever and a day afterwards. And I'm talking about compelling stuff, not just I showed up every day and collected 100 stones. I'm talking, encountering bosses, hunting down things, finding things that are hard to find, solving mysteries and puzzles, and that kind of thing. And as I started to think about this too, I thought, well, how does this journey become unique for a player? So what if I play this and I do this, but I want to now level an alt, but I want to do the Heroic Saga as an alt? The answer to that is the same mechanics we see that BioWare has done so well in the past, which is introducing choices within the story of your Heroic Saga that take you down different paths that you would have from hero to hero that you're going to play throughout the game. So one choice that you make sends you down this path for your mage, and then you play it on your hunter, and you make this choice that sends you down this path. And they may ultimately conclude in something very similar, but the journey to that similar conclusion point will be different. So it's a little bit choose your own adventure as well mixed into it. And this way, players have something else to do that is also epic besides wandering around the world picking flowers until their next raid night. And this, I think, will bring back players and give them a reason to come back on a regular basis and stay invested, because they're going to get really worthwhile content delivered to them more frequently. Something new is going to happen besides a rotation of dungeons that we've done before with just, the hit points racked up a bit.
Okay. Let me throw a couple things your way, kind of mold it, work with this. The closest that I think we've ever had to this, and I mean, some people will argue that, well, Blizzard always puts in, progressive storytelling in the patches. There's the legendary quest line, everything like that. This is totally not that. Not that at all. This is something different, something that is, much more expansive to cover, a lot of that lull time in between patches that, raiders are able to do, that PvPers are maybe able to do. I can't speak on that, but I know as a raider, I spend a lot of time endgame working on all that content, so it gives me something to do. This is an individual, quest line, something that you can do to experience the game, get you out in the world, a lot more like that. The closest we've ever had to that, I would say, is probably patch 5.1. And I would say everybody on this show has said that that is their most favorite patch because it's offered them content. I know a lot of people who aren't on this episode have said that that is their favorite thing patch-wise that's come to the game, because it's given you something to do. It's given you epic storytelling that brings you into the expansion and progresses everything that has happened beforehand. So a couple things that I think we need to figure out on this.
But wait, let me just add this before you jump in.
Okay.
So I want to say this to both your listeners and to the folks that are in your chat room. Mm-hmm. We all remember Wrathgate, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So you're getting something like that several times within a patch tier.
Oh, yeah. As you said, epic
when
experience.
I say epic, I'm thinking that level of epic.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I want that right now, actually. We haven't even spitballed it and perfected it, and I want it. But, okay, so, couple things. Released episodically, like, say, once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that. But it's more of just do a couple dailies, get your rep up, here's some story. Because that's not what we're going for, but it's similar in a sense that you get a chunk of story after a certain time frame. So, right. Troubleshoot number 1. I'm someone who misses a week. Does that mean that the story progresses without me, or that I can do the next 2 episodes in 1 week so that I'm caught up? Or do I do one a week and then I have to wait till next week to do the next one?
Nope, you will not miss anything. You don't have to wait a week. You don't have to finish it. The gating for the content and the new content that comes within the saga is simply gated by the time frame within that calendar that it happens. So, but once it's open, it's open.
Okay,
so
cool.
if you perhaps don't even play the expansion currently, maybe you come to the next expansion later, but you'd like to do the Heroic Saga, it'll still be there for you, and it won't be gated because you'll be able to progress through it. But for the folks that are there present within the expansion, there'll be some gating so that they got something to look forward to on a weekly basis that's new and fresh, and not just the same stuff that they got at the start of the patch.
Okay, perfect. I like that. That works because, there are times that maybe I want to go on vacation and I can't play for a week or something. I would hate to be, a week behind everybody else, because that would just suck, and you know how I am with spoilers anyway, so I would end up punching a lot of people, and that's just not nice.
And you say that great. It's spoilers. I want people to be like, shh, 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 don't tell me. I haven't gotten through last week's set of quests yet. Shut up. I want that level of story engagement from the players that they're like, no, don't say anything. Shush. That they are able to get through it on their own. And that's also why we want to bring some level of variation to the path that they're on, so that everyone's path is a little bit different.
Exactly. And there are incredibly good ways that you can do that and still end up at the same point. John and I have talked many times about the Walking Dead game and how it does such a great job to make you think that your choices matter, and none of them do. because
yeah,
everything ends up the same
way.
way.
Your choices matter. You think there was 10 different variations of end bosses for those games? No. You ended up fighting the same alien every single time.
Exactly. And Mass Effect's one of my favorite games, and I've altered it and seen different ways, and again, ultimately end up at the same place. John, do you think that this is a framework that Blizzard can actually put into, say, the next expansion and give non-raiders something to look forward to?
So I've been thinking about this, and I've been trying to think of it in the scope of an expansion they've already done, rather than try and think of it in some hypothetical expansion that hasn't existed. And I'm thinking about it within the context of Wrath of the Lich King. Like, let's look at that expansion for a moment. So you're playing Wrath of the Lich King. You're a raider. Your end game is you are going to progress through the story of the raids. You're going to, take out Kel'Thuzad and Naxxramas. Then you're going to go and fight Yogg-Saron. And then you're going to go and have a tournament fight. And then you're going to go and fight the Lich King. And the Lich King is your final boss. And let's continue to live in a world where the raiders get the big kill. You know what I mean? Like, I've always kind of debated whether or not the raiders necessarily need to be the ones that take down the big bad, but let's just continue to live in the world where that's the case. So that's their story progression, right?
Yeah.
Then you've got the dungeon people. Like, let's say all they want to do is run dungeons. Same sort of deal in that expansion. Maybe they could have gotten something a little better as a bigger payoff for the ending to their story, but they've got that really cool encounter where you run away from Arthas. Like, I still think that is one of the cooler set pieces in that game, where it's like, we're gonna sneak in and get him and get his sword and all this stuff, and like, we got this plan, and then it doesn't pan out very well, and it's like, man, that's rough.
Run like hell, everybody. Yeah.
So that's kind of the story cap for the dungeon people. Now, PvP, I'm not going to say that PvPers don't care about story, but I will make this bold statement that I'm sure people are going to argue with, that PvPers don't necessarily feel they need story in their PvP. They don't need some deep-seated lore reason why they must capture a flag 3 times.
I've got it.
So
their lore is they hate the color red.
Or blue.
That's all they need.
Yeah, just joy. That's what it is. So
exactly.
Lore.
It's Heroes of the Storm logic for the lore and Heroes of the Storm, and the logic is don't think about this too much.
If they're red, they're dead.
Yeah.
So they're fine. Make PvP good is what I will say for the PvPers. So now let's take a look at, let's take Mick's idea and let's put that in the framework of what we've just created and established. Like, within that expansion. Now, before Lich King came out, there was something that Blizzard kept saying a bunch. And they kept saying, like, Icecrown has some really big secrets, and you're going to discover the source behind Arthas's power. Like, there's a secret source powering Arthas. They kept saying this. And then when we finally got to Icecrown and people were like, what was that mysterious source? They were like, hey, we didn't really ultimately talk about it. Like, it ended up being a story beat that kind of got dropped, because they felt it wasn't super important or pivotal or anything like that.
Bolvar knows it, though.
Able to cram it into the context of how do we resolve that important thing within a raid.
Right.
Right.
So what if the single-player story for continuing once you hit max level takes you into the very heart of Icecrown, again in an episodic format where you're kind of starting out as just this soldier, and you're making your way, and it's telling this interesting story, and you're fighting up to the gates of Icecrown, and ultimately you end up beneath Icecrown, and you discover that part of the Lich King's power, part of his power base, part of all of this world is tied to kind of Yogg-Saron and the old gods and all of that and the corruption, and you alone are going to have to face it down beneath Icecrown Citadel. And now you've got this epic story, and the idea is that if you defeat whatever this thing is, that's going to be what will weaken Arthas enough to where people can stand against him. Like, if you don't do this, statue guy doesn't manage to break out of the ice and kill Arthas. Tyrion Fordring. I couldn't think of his name for a minute, so he became statue guy. Like, he doesn't get the ability to break free if you don't go on that mission. You're pivotal to the story of Icecrown. No, you weren't with the raid team that downed the Lich King, any more than the raid team wasn't the one who finally crushed Arthas, because again, that was Tyrion. But you have this pivotal role that you had to play, and you had this epic story leading up to it. And now you've kind of got your full player base who engages with all the different levels of content, having a very pivotal and important role that they've played during the course of this adventure. And when I think of that, I get super excited, because as a player, it makes me say, okay, I definitely want to do the single player epic story thing. I probably want to do the dungeon, and I really want to do the raid, because the stories there are all compelling, and I still don't want a PvP because I've had enough of that. But I think that's an awesome idea. As somebody who is playing SWTOR right now, purely because it is an amazing story that lets me have choice and feel like I have agency on the story, even though I kind of don't, yes, it can be an amazing driving factor for the game. So I completely support it.
Well, and the funny thing is, too, is... So John and I, we've talked many times about our characters, about RP, about things like that. And during Wrath of the Lich King, you and I would talk a whole lot about Eos and Alanya and what they would be doing, you know, for everything. And we both kind of came to the conclusion that our characters are never the ones that actually take out the Lich King. Because, you know, continuity-wise in the world, it's always someone else. You know, raiders go in, they do that. Because it's always a group of people. So, like, if you want to include yourself in that, great. If you don't, great. And when you would be talking about, you know, your character development, your character storyline for, you know, the whole Lich King saga, you were always doing, like, a side mission or doing this or doing something else. And, I mean, granted, you weren't raiding at the time, but it added so much more to the story overall of everything that was happening. It gave your character something epic to do, and it gave you, like, a sense of purpose. I mean, granted, you weren't actually doing these things in-game, but it added to that overwhelming feeling of, this is amazing, this is something that's great, I'm helping out in my own way. And it totally works and fits, especially in a story content where, you know, as long as we kind of get an idea of the overall once it's done, if I didn't do the dungeons, I still kind of have an idea of what's going on. Like, let's say you're going into that Yogg-Saron mind control thing on your own. You go in there, it's the same week that, you know, the last wing of ICC is out, and you go in, you do your thing, you kill this, and then you get the cutscene that shows Uther breaking out and attacking the Lich King because you were able to release him. You know, it's something
Tyrion,
along those
not
lines.
Uther.
Yeah,
Uther's
that's what
still
I meant.
dead.
Yeah. No, he's not dead. He's in the Nexus. But, I mean, and then, so Tyrion breaks out, and you get to see that you were able to help with that. The people who are actually raiding see the same thing, but from a different perspective, because they're dead getting raised. Someone in the dungeon that goes a different way, the PvPers are out there fighting. So, you know, it's something that adds so much more story to it, and the fact that it were to progress through the whole expansion, that gives people a reason to log in. That gives them a much more compelling reason to continue playing and also paying or buying WoW tokens or whatever. I think it's something that Blizzard would benefit from and give so many people the story content that they've been craving, especially in this current expansion.
And I imagine, Mick, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you know, if your thing is I like to mindlessly log in and do Apexis dailies, or whatever kind of dailies that we're going to call it, and just grind out gear and look for treasures and all that, you're not saying that this is a replacement for that content. That content's there.
I'm a huge believer in don't take things away from the players in Warcraft. I'm a big believer in If that's there and there's somebody who's like, I just love logging in and doing the same thing every night, then I think that person should get a chance to do that. And that's fine. And also, too, you know, people are going to finish this content and they're going to be done with the content, too. You know, they're going to need stuff to do besides this as well. And so that there does need to be a certain amount of that. I believe, though, what I'm asking for or pitching is this idea that I can have an experience on my own as an adventurer and a hero that rivals the epic feeling and quality of the storytelling that is happening within the context of the raid. And that I will progress through this and make choices within this, and I will truly have an experience as a player that is my own journey. It is my own saga, and that's what I think we're missing in this game within the context of its kind of sandbox world that it's trying to achieve. And randomly kind of discovering quest lines, it's not necessarily what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is really trying to create really epic experiences for players that aren't tied to the raid. And raiding should have its own set of achievements and its own set of wonder. And I'm not saying replace raiding with this wonderful thing. I'm saying that if I'm a player and 2 nights a week I'm being epic in my raid with my raid team, then the other nights of the week that I play, I can be epic on my own when my other friends are not on and playing. Or
even, I don't have time to raid. I'm still epic and still worthwhile in this game.
And it's more for that player who got to level 100 at this expansion and went, and now what do I do? You know, and that is not unique to Warlords of Draenor. That happens in every single expansion. Because there's a person that just, the raiding portion of this game is not for them. And that player needs their own version of Endgame too.
Well, they got especially screwed this expansion, because if you are not raiding and you're just a pure story guy, like, your story in this expansion ended with you confronting Garrosh, getting the crap kicked out of you by Garrosh, and then Thrall killing him.
Yeah.
Like, and the end, there's your heroic moment. You got beat up by the guy you beat up last expansion, and then Thrall killed him for you. I mean, we're not necessarily strangers to having someone step in and strike the final blow, but, I mean, you want to talk about the lack of a power fantasy. You lose a fight, and then someone else kills that guy for you, and you go home.
Yeah.
But even more so,
not great.
That's, say, you know, we'll be, you know, not so generous. Well, okay, we'll be generous. That's like 2 weeks of content, leveling 90 to 100. That's it. Meanwhile, raiders have week after week, patch after patch. PvPers, they still kill each other. People who run dungeons, they do a whole bunch of that, and then, you know, they're kind of done as well if they don't jump into raiding. So, yeah, you have a lot of heavy end playing, but again, that's maybe a couple weeks, and then that's about it. And I understand that a lot of work goes into those quests, and we appreciate it, especially in Draenor, because it was really good. But if those, you know, content creators are able to continue creating content and put it in a framework that, you know, Mick, you've suggested, I think that it gives so much more longevity to a lot of the player base that's just logging in to do chores.
Yeah. And I think, too, if people are like, well, how are they going to do that? Because, you know, I'm literally like, there needs to be some outsourcing. There needs to be new team members brought in. You know, I know that Blizzard has its limitations, but here's the cool thing about the quote-unquote heroic saga. The development and implementation of it doesn't necessarily have to happen in big chunks of patch. You can be halfway through developing the saga for patch 7.2, and that's okay. Go with what we got, because we can still keep bringing in content and hot patching it in as we go.
Yeah,
you know?
Releasing it once a week. You know, maybe twice a week, depending on how much content we're planning for it. And on top of that, this brings in the idea of, you know, bringing in other creative personalities like Christy Golden, maybe Karen Travis, Other authors.
We saw today, you know, Chuck Wendig, the author, was announced to be getting a 3-book deal for Star Wars. And he's going to be jumping in and writing books for Star Wars. And so has Kevin Hearn. And there's all these great authors out there who are writing these books. You can bring them in and say, hey, help us craft the story. And, you know, this chunk of the Heroic Saga was brought to you by Christy Golden and Kevin Hearn. And that would be an amazing idea, you know.
This chunk of the story was brought to you by Cheesy Poofs.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, the idea here is that, you know, you should feel like you're really challenged. You can feel like if you went into that cave to go get that thing, it was really hard to get to the end of that cave, and it was really hard to get out of that cave, but I did it, and I'm awesome for it. And this way, I think players can feel like an epic adventure more often than that first time that they down that last boss of that raid in that particular patch. And that's what I would want for players to have, is to feel like a champion and to feel like a hero a lot more frequently than what I think they get the opportunity to be now.
And I'll throw out a kind of an additional idea to go along with this. One of the things that I've really liked about 6.2, and there was a little bit of this from Pandaria and Timeless Isle, and it's popped up here and there, but it's not as common as you would think for how much I like it, and I would hope and assume other people like it too, is as I'm running around, you know, looking for rares, looking for treasure and all that, you know, doing the exploring thing, you know, I'll come across things where, you know, you come up to a pool and it's got like 4 warlocks all around the pool, and they're all doing, you know, warlocky stuff to it. And you think, oh, what are these guys up to? And you go down there and you know, get in a fight with all of them, and you knock them out, and then all of a sudden out of the pool rises this molten golem that they were, you know, constructing or summoning or whatever, and now you've got a rare spawn in front of you and you're going to fight him and all that. Like, that sort of discovery, that sort of stuff where it's not just like, I went to the skull icon and I killed the skull icon and I got treasure for it. Like, that's super rewarding, because I felt like I discovered that. They were up to no good. I stopped them, but then no good found me, and then we had to fight it. That's cool. Maybe even build on that, though, where maybe you disrupt their summoning ritual and that gives a quest that isn't like a daily quest or anything like that. It's not a thing that I gotta go fight those 4 warlocks today. Like, here's your quest. It's going to lead you through a story about, like, you know, what are these warlocks actually up to? What are they doing? If you care to read it. If not, you can do it for the additional Apexis crystals or whatever MacGuffin they decide you're collecting this expansion. And you go and complete it, and you discover a whole nother little story that features your character, that features you doing stuff. And that even gives a little bit of story to the people who, you know, do say that I'm fine with doing Apexis dailies. Like, I don't know why everybody harps on Apexis dailies. I like doing them. And I don't want to tell those people, like, well, you're playing the game wrong. I don't agree with that. Like, I like a little more motivation to go out there and do it, but I'm one of those people too that I'll put on a TV show or a podcast or something, and I'll just let it play. And Apexis dailies are a great way to just mindlessly zone out and be doing something while I'm listening to something else. So I do understand there's an appeal there, but you can even add to that and make it bigger. And, like, there's a way to make that sense of discovery better by putting more organic things like that out there. So it isn't just, well, that thing glowed purple, so I right-clicked it, and there was a skull icon on that guy, so I killed him. And there's some swords crossed over there, so I think there's something I need to do over there. Like, I love that sense of discovery when you figure something out within the world, and you make a discovery of, like, oh, hey, this is cool.
Yep. With that, I'll throw a little addendum to it. Don't make those quests part of, like, the questing achievement that gives you, like, lore master and things like that. They can have their own achievement if you do, like, all of them, but
oh, they definitely would, yeah.
But don't stick them with the main story, so that it is side questing that's actually optional, and it promotes more exploration, so you're actually stumbling upon it, as opposed to, oh, now I have a quest to go over here to disrupt the warlocky dudes.
Yeah, Exactly. I mean, there are parts of the game that that aren't going to go away because they're kind of just they're staples of the MMO and the MMORPG. But what I think I'm asking is for Blizzard to innovate a little bit within what they've created. And they're so far past what MMORPGs were back in the EverQuest days and pre-EverQuest. So now it's an opportunity to give this. And I know, like, I might run this past somebody and they would say, well, that just sounds like single player campaign in every other console game. And that's not what this is, but it's not unlike that. This is Warcraft's version of that experience for a player. And that goes beyond the level 100 cap.
It's more like a good version of Destiny put into Warlords or WoW. How there's a lot of people running around, but there is stuff to do. Well, okay, maybe not Destiny, but you get what I'm saying. It's not an MMO. It's not a single player game. It's kind of a hybrid, but you have something to do singularly as well as go join all these other things. I mean, it just expands the experience for everybody who logs into the game.